Gearbox is making a Tiny Tina spin-off based on the Assault on Dragon's Keep DLC from Borderlands 2. And I say spin-off, but this should actually be its own franchise with some familiar but also a lot of new characters. During E3 we saw the reveal trailer, some screenshots, and we also had a bunch of interviews revealing more about this single player or up to 4-player co-op game that is coming in early 2022. So in this video I want to go over all the info that we know so far. A like would of course really help me out, and let's go. So yes, this game takes place in bunkers and badasses, basically the Dungeons and Dragons equivalent in the Borderlands universe, and we already got introduced to that of course in the Borderlands 2 DLC. The game also takes place after the ending of that DLC, but Gearbox does note that if you haven't played the DLC, you can jump into this game just fine. What is good to know is that just like in that Assault on Dragon's Keep expansion, the story of Wonderlands is completely made up by Tiny Tina's imagination and can actually change on the fly as well. And we saw that at the start of the DLC of course, where you first fight this handsome dragon that instantly wipes your party, but because the Borderlands 2 characters who are playing the game are complaining about that, Tiny Tina changes the boss to Mr. Bony Pants guy, who is of course way easier to take out. And there are many examples of this happening of course in the expansion, and we should also expect that in Wonderlands, including the skeleton enemies. And we actually have a screenshot of how the skeletons look in this game with a throne in the background. The graphics look great, by the way, of course still in that familiar Borderlands art style. And this time we create our own multi-class hero and then loot, shoot, slash cast our way through outlandish monsters and treasure-filled dungeons on a quest to stop the tyrannic Dragon Lord played by Will Arnett. Okay, treasure-filled dungeons. I'm sure that some of these treasures will turn into mimics like they did in the DLC. Going back to our character though, because them saying that we create our own multi-class hero is of course huge. In Borderlands you of course always pick a pre-made character associated with a particular class. Now we also have multi-class, which is interesting. In D&D this means that every time you level up, you pick which class you want to level up, instead of having your character level up. Which means that if you invest in multiple classes, you can mix and match combinations of these classes and take attributes and perks from those classes to create your own. So I'm really curious with them saying multi-class heroes, how deep the customization will be. In the trailer we see a character forge his own weapon, although we are not sure if that's in the game. What we do know is that weapon customization will not be in the game, but we did learn about a ton of other things during a trailer breakdown with Matt Cox, the creative director on Wonderlands. For example, that there will be a lot of loot, including melee weapons, which should be huge. On Twitter, Randy Pitchford, of course the CEO from Gearbox, hinted at bows and crossbows for the game as well. And going back to Matt in the trailer breakdown, he namely notes that we can collect armor and amulets as well. So also curious if there are like multiple armor pieces. I think that would be awesome. There will be no grenades, but we do have a lot of spells, which Matt notes function a bit like skills, because of their power and variety of behavior. The game was announced during Summer Game Fest, where we saw Ashley Birch, who of course voices Tiny Tina, talk about Wonderlands. And behind her we see some characters, namely a robot called Fred. I'm curious what a robot is doing in a fantasy style world, but I can't wait to find out. Voiced by Wanda Sykes, by the way. We see Captain Valentine in the back here too, played by Andy Samberg. And on the left we see the main villain, the Dragon Lord, which looks pretty cool, and we got a screenshot of him as well. And I'm immediately looking at this sword that will likely be a drop, you would think, right? Maybe we can get some armor pieces of this boss too. And I'm sure that the gun that shoots swords that explode into more swords that explode will be back in this game. I at least hope so. Other enemies we can expect are, for example, sharks with legs we saw in the trailer. Why not? Like, they're really going crazy. Wyverns are confirmed. I mean, we saw a dragon-like creature in the trailer too. And going back to this lava area, because it looks huge, and I'm kinda getting Mordor vibes from this in a way. And overall, the skill seems significantly improved over Borderlands in terms of buildings and details in the environment. This castle looks namely huge too and has many vertical layers. Like, it looks very promising. We will be fighting goblins in a snowy area like this too. We see a huge statue on this building, maybe of one of their leaders. So yeah, we still don't have a lot of specifics about the game. What they did promise was repeatable endgame content. For Borderlands 3, we of course had the trials, which, looking back, kind of failed to provide meaningful rewards for the time you put into it. So I'm curious what their version of that will be in this game. And I'm sure they will have like a good post-launch too, looking at how they handled Borderlands 3. I at least can't wait to follow this game and cover it here like we did with Borderlands 3. So totally subscribe for way more Tiny Tina's Wonderland videos. When there's more info or a gameplay reveal, I will let you know here. A like on the video would of course really help me out. And for now, I will speak to you next time. Goodbye!